Hey, what's up, dude? What up, dude? New day. More code. Alright, man. What's this? 241. Let's see what we can do today. Okay. So yesterday we continued with the reconnect logic in server. Uh, we didn't work in server, but hold up. I gotta change this. Fuck is this? There we go. Extensions are good. Okie dokie. So reconnect logic in client and save logic file. That was yesterday. We continue working on code to reconnect the client to the proper game. Mainly worked in client Pi. Specifically, we created a modified code in client and save logic to save load early game metadata to the newly created static save data table and change the name of the save data table to be dynamic save data instead. We created code which saves the client token to the static save data database table after receiving it from the server side. Top to line 10 and things to do. And I'm just like, honestly, how did that take me that long? Oh well. Okay, so let's see what our next task is here. Is audio's working? Of course I didn't say anything, so I'm not gonna hear it for like 10 seconds. But I'm assuming audio works. Let's see. Audio. Audio, baby. Audio. Audio. Got about 3 more seconds left here. Gotta set our timer too. There it is. Audio is working indeed. Okay, so time 4 minutes, so we gotta do 64 minutes. There we go. Look at that math. So good at freaking math, bro. So good at simple arithmetic. It's it's crazy, dude. Okay, so yesterday we changed this code so that we end up save. There it is. Okay, so we save the token here. As we added, we get the client token. We then serialize it using pickle dumps, and dumps does serialize which turns it into a JSON string, and then we insert it into not JSON string. No. It's not JSON. It's pickle. It dumps it into bytes. Idiot. Dumps it into bytes, right? Pickle dumps output bytes, and I will eventually, one day, I will remember this. It's because of JSON versus pickle. Yes, pickle dumps outputs bytes. There we go. Easy. Okay, then we insert into the database, because we only have one database. We're not using two. We're just using a different table. We insert it into the static save data table. Object name, values. Placeholders on conflict of object name do update. Set the value equal to whatever the third placeholder value is, and these are our placeholder values, which is client token for object name, then serialized client token for the values. So there we go. Now we have that client token saved to the static save data table. Then we go ahead and code verify received. We send it out. Then we extract our payload from the token. We extract the values from the dictionary from the payload, and then we save these values because they are important to the static save data table, the same one that we saved the client token to. Yeah, we have reconnect port, game ID, game ID. Alright. Then we have database cursor, that same database, into static save data table. And we do execute many, and we iterate through the serialized tuple. Alright. And then when we reconnect, we have to select from the static save data, because that's where the data is saved, because we're trying to get the reconnect port, game ID, client ID, and local or remote. We might not need local or remote. I don't actually know. We'll figure that out eventually. Anyway, moving on. Okay, so there's our review. Our review is done. Oh yeah, and then in save logic, let's just verify we did that correctly. So in save logic, we have the regular database, and then we have a new table. We have the static save data and then the dynamic save data. Save data got changed to dynamic, and static save data is a new table altogether. So whenever we do serialize and insert, that uses dynamic save data, which is correct. We changed other instances of save data to dynamic save data, and wonder if we modified any of this stuff. Yeah, looks like we didn't. Checkpoint ID and timestamp last saved. And then when we load from dynamic save data, and that's correct. All right, now, so that looks good. Yeah, I think that's it. So that includes all the changes from yesterday. So next we have to add CS code in client to load the client token. We must load the client token from static save data for reconnect validation upon reconnect. So in client, we want to load in the client token from static save data whenever they reconnect. Where is this going to happen at? Okay, yeah, we need to. So whenever we save it, I guess we would add it to this object name iterable, right? Because we want to load that in as well. We want to load in the payload data, which is the reconnect port, game ID, client ID, local or remote, but we also want to load in the actual token itself, because that has to be sent back to the server to verify that they're not spoofing or whatever. And where would that happen? Would that happen at this point in time? I honestly don't know. I would say this would be the point in time. When do they actually make the connection? Well, they have to connect first and then they get verified. Water loop, so right, so there we go. Client token equals end receive. There we go. So there's the connect. That's when they get connected. And then after they get connected. So wait, hold up. If they start a new game, they get connected. But what about if they select a new game, they don't get connected? Okay, well, right, because they have to. Well, they have to have the reconnect port and stuff before they can get connected, right? Yeah. Yeah, so they have to. Before they can get connected, they have to have that information. It's true. Yeah. So we have to add that. That's why it's good to scan your file as well. Just like visually scanning through. Yeah, that needs to be done. They're not going to be able to actually play the game because they're not connected. So we need to. So we have a few things we need to do right here. We need to, one, load in the client token as well. So let's put a to-do here. Wait, why do we... Wait. Why do we... Why does this have to happen after this? Wait, what? Why do we need to... So actually I have this connect call already. But I'm confused. Why does this have to be after this? If current client solve reconnect bool is equal to false, run set pygame video mode, then we run setup. Okay. And then we say if P1 game select choice is equal to reconnect to game, we do connect. But why can't we just run connect up here? Why does it have to be? I mean, it seems like it would make more sense to have it right here. What, after review, determine must proceed next section. Okay, that makes sense because of the current game assignments. And then this one, after review, determine must succeed the prior section. And that's because of the current game assignment. Okay, that's fine. And then we have this one, though, which is... If P1 game selected choice is equal to reconnect to game. Reconnect to proper game to server. Do this while replaying all their saved game data. To let other client know ASAP that client has reconnected. Need to include client ID to let server know which client they are. Need to add code in server pi which handles receiving expecting this client ID. Also to determine, well, this should be client token now. Also to determine which client 1 or 2 is associated with. Okay. Can we move this to be in the above elif clause so that this assignment... Okay, right. This is what I'm asking right now. Can we move this to be in the above elif clause so that this assignment corresponds with the alternative connection assignment in the if connected to that clause? Review before moving. Yeah, and I just don't see why. Like, this doesn't have to... Now, as for the load state function, that has to happen after setup. Right, didn't we determine that? Yeah. This has to be add code to the... Is this correct to call this here? Is this proper location? Must be called after setup. Yes. So like this must be called after setup. So like this has to be done here. And if we're reconnecting to a game, add code which loads in data from database. Okay, so that is that code, so we can get rid of that. Now this though, I'm pretty sure Yeah, we don't want to let them go any further until we verify them. Like we don't want to do none of this shit until they get verified. We're not gonna load in their game data until they get verified. So at this point, this is when we need to must add code which sends the client token to the server to authenticate user client. Alright, so let's modify the code so that the client token is loaded from the static save data. So we're going to add the client token because client token is saved under this namespace as the object name in the database, right? So if we do a project search, we should be able to find that. Yep. So that's how we save it. Okay. So now it's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have to add in another placeholder here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we do all that. Resulting user res, serialize reconnect port. Alright, so we need to copy this and then we'll have the serialized client token. We can copy that. So I'll take the client token. Ensures we'll always be assigning the correct data to the correct namespace while we converted it to a dict beforehand. Shows client token. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and now this will be changed to fuck. Oops. There we go. One-side code which connects the client to the server. Con equals in connect local. Turn that. Don't we have to assign? So, there's an issue here. Like, well, it's not an issue. It's just I was thinking about whenever they're doing a local couch co-op or whatever, or if they're on the same IP address playing each other on two different computers, how do they well, the server's never gonna actually be hosted. Let me think about this for a second. So, the server is never actually gonna be hosted from the client's computer. They're always gonna have to connect to the server to play the game, even if it's on a local like couch co-op setting, because the server contains all the server-side code. I'm not gonna give my server code to the client, because then like they would be able to, well, they'd be able to steal my game. They would also be able to like know all the security of the game by having that file. So yeah. Anyway, I don't think. Yeah, I'm not gonna give them the server. That goes to that like stop killing games or whatever controversy. I don't really follow that shit. It's not that big of a deal to me. I just know personally, like, I'm not gonna give this server file to the clients. So, with that said, I think with that means that implies that the local network endpoint, I don't think we're gonna actually ever use this. Yeah, we're not gonna use that. There will never be such a thing as the local network hosting the server, which means the client would never connect to the client would never connect like that. It's not ever going to be a thing. So we need to add this to things to do. I don't really want to necessarily do that right now, but it does need to be done. We're going to just say remove network code, or remove all code related to local network endpoint. And this is because determined that we would never actually connect to the, determined that we would never have the server be hosted on the local machine. The client would always need to connect to the server, even if playing the local couch co-op. Therefore, delete all code related to this and replace all instances with the remote network endpoint. As a matter of fact, could probably just change the namespace of remote network endpoint to network endpoint. Since there will only be one. There will only be one endpoint. Yeah, there we go. Alright. So ultimately, does that mean that the local keyword in connect can be deleted? Yeah, I think it probably can. Yeah, this also most likely means the local param in connect network.connect can be removed completely. True. All right. So we don't this, yeah, so that also implies that we can probably remove the like local or remote. I don't think we might not need local or remote at all. Like there's not going to be any distinguishing. There's going to be virtually no difference. Honestly, I don't even know how you would necessarily do couch co-op for this game. Like you would probably have to I mean, you would have to hide the hand of each player, you know, like they would only be able to look when they were taking their turn or whatever. It's kind of a silly idea, honestly. We may not even actually be able to do couch co-op, honestly, because of that. So, realistically, nobody's really going to want to do that anyway. I mean, this is like 1 in a million thing, so we might just remove that. I mean, technically, we could just hide the hand of the opposing player whenever the players making their turn. But that's got to be done either way, right? Like either way, you're supposed to not be able to see the other player's cards. That's one thing that has to be added. That's not added. So actually, that feature of hiding the other player's hand when it's like when it's your turn, you shouldn't be able to see the other player's hand. Yeah, that would have to be different for couch co-op, because couch co-op it would swap, but for like the actual game, you just wouldn't be able to see their cards. They would always remain face down. I'm pretty sure I have that as a to-do, but I'll just add it anyway. Opposing player, we'll say add CS code to hide opposing players' cards. Add CS code which hides the opposing player's hand, making them always be face down. Need to also ensure security so that client can't hack the client file to gain access to the other player's cards, since they technically exist in the client's data. Perhaps may have to modify so that instead of, I don't know, we're gonna have to modify code to accommodate this. Almost certainly you're gonna have to modify code to accommodate this feature. And then concerning couch co-op, hiding other players' cards. If adding this feature would need to implement separate way to hide the non-current player's hand so that it switches between showing each player's hand depending on whose turn it is. This is different from the non-couch co-op card hiding feature. Yes, it is. Alright. Okay, fuck. Man, it's always some extra shit, huh? It's always some extra shit, bro. But It's part of the process. Oh, gotta stretch it out here, dog. Oh, ooh, oh. It's raining. Sound like it's raining hard as a motherfucker too. Wait, am I tripping? No, I'm not tripping. There it is. It's like I can't see the rain. It's there though. Alright. Now we got sidetracked. We gotta figure out where we were before we got sidetracked. Okay, right. So this has to do with local. See how easy it is to get sidetracked, bro. Con equals n connects local. So the local keyword is basically probably gonna be nullified. We're not gonna use it. But then we have to assign network. Yes, we do have to assign the network endpoint because we're not going to be connecting like to the original. Should we have two network endpoints though? Should we have the like, shouldn't we have a initial network endpoint and then a reconnect network endpoint? Every single client is going to initially connect to the main process. And whenever they like are done with the game, in the case yeah, I think the answer to this is yes. I think we need two endpoints here. And that means we need the initial or the main process endpoint. And then we also need the reconnect network endpoint. And that's going to be that individual port. And this raises the question of the fact of whether we need these as actual attributes in the first place at all. Or could we just simply yeah, because I want to do it right. Let me think about this. If we just have the single endpoint, like let's just say we don't use it as we don't have it as an attribute. Well, then how would we have it? If we don't have it as network dot remote say as network dot network endpoint, how would it exist? Well, it would just simply exist as the we would just manually type in from the client. We would say nconnect, and we would basically just pass in as an arg. We would have to anyway. We would have to pass in the IP address and the port. And that's like one way to do it. We don't actually need to have it as in a separate network attribute. You know, I'm trying to declutter and get this right. You know what I mean? I feel like maybe we could nix this. I love to get rid of code. I feel like we could maybe get rid of this completely. And instead, we would just pass the IP port combo as an arg. And it would be that simple. And then we don't need to assign this like endpoint shit. We don't need that. I don't think we need it. It's kind of like a bloat. It's extra. It's a middleman, and I don't like useless middlemen are just, well, they're useless. All they do is cause confusion and slow things down. But the question is, if we do use that object on the server, maybe we do need it. So let's see here. So let's look for underscore endpoint. Let's see where we use this in the project. I don't think we're going to end up needing it, and I'm about to get excited if I'm going to be able to delete this code. Okay. See, that's what I'm talking about. Look at this. The only place it's used is here. It's not used in server. Like server specifically when it starts accepting connections and stuff. I know this is all complicated. It is complicated. It's not that complicated, but it is. So we don't even start accepting clients in this. So this name needs to be changed. There we go. Bind. Reconnect socket, reconnect port, reconnect bind, reconnect listen. There we go. So server is just created here, and we use get fqdn right now to get the local address, but that's going to need to be changed once it's no longer a local machine hosted. Yeah, and then we just do s accept. So we just listen. We bind and listen using server and port. We don't reference the network attribute at all. So yeah, there's basically like no reason for us to there's no reason for us to do that. Yeah, I think we're gonna delete it, dude. We're just gonna get rid of that code. We can completely get rid of these endpoint attributes. We can also get like all this port network socket. Like I'm okay with us keeping, you know, this other stuff, but I guess we could also assign the reconnect port here. Like we'll have two different ports. We'll have the we'll have the main process port, and then we'll have the reconnect port. And once we receive that, Like, we could save that as a client attribute. So I don't know if we should. I don't know if we should have this here or not. That always gets me, like, where to put things in what file and stuff. Let's see here. Port. So the only reason we use port here so we have the port is only used here. But instead, we could just directly pass this to the connect function. And instead of this local arg, we would just have the we'd call it the endpoint, and the endpoint it's also known as the IP port combo. Is a endpoint the same as an IP port combo? An endpoint is not strictly the same as an IP port combo, but in many contexts, especially in networking, it refers to or includes the IP port combo at its core. IP port combo consists of an IP address and a port number that uniquely identifies a socket on a host within a network. IPv4 plus TCP UDP port. The endpoint is a broader term, often refers to the network address of a target in communication, usually IP and port. Sometimes also includes the transport protocol and the path or method. A security context in sockets typically means a local endpoint. Local IP plus local port. Remote endpoint, remote IP plus remote port. And APIs, web services. Okay. So no level networking like TCP sockets endpoints is equal to IP port. But in broader context, so I think we'll be direct and we'll call it IP port combo. We're not going to use that namespace. How about that? And we're just going to pass this in directly. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. We're going to do this code real quick. We're making the change. All right. So we're not going to have a. Let's start from the top here. We are not going to use. There's going to be no such thing as a local network endpoint. So that's gone. What about local server IP address? Where's this? Well, we still do use that. But we don't use this. And that's only temporary. Eventually we're going to get rid of the local server IP address. So I have network socket. We don't even have network socket 2. So get rid of that. That's vestigial. Remote server IP address. We're getting rid of that as well. Port, we're getting rid of that as well. Remote network endpoint, we're getting rid of that as well. Remote network endpoint, yeah, we don't need that either. Okay, so it's gone. Alright. So now let's get rid of the port. Now we have the will be static variable, will it need to be saved? What will the code that handles this need to do this? Remote server IP address, we'll take care of that. That's getting removed completely. Now we have local, that's temporary. We'll keep it. Need to finish implementing feature will this be set. Get that out of here. Remote network endpoint and local network endpoint are all gone as well. Don't need them at all. See how much code we're getting rid of. We're going to try to replace it with like one line. Alright. Now this is going to be changed. Modified added the local param to dictate whether we're connecting to a local machine or a remote server. If you use your local, yeah. So this, get it out of here. So instead of taking local, connect is now going to take the IP port combo. And doesn't it need to be passed as a tuple? Yeah, it needs to be passed as a tuple. It's a tuple. The IP address and the port. Okay, there we go. Oh. Oh. All right. Uh, the assessment. Let's give it. Well, it is what it is. We did the thing. Things always require other things to be done to do the thing that you're trying to do, which require other things to do that you have to do before you can do the thing that you were trying to do. So you can do the thing that you were trying to do in the first place. So just sidetrack of a sidetrack, and then you have to take care of them in a nested order, reverse back to your previous state without losing track of what you were thinking of, and you know, it is what it is. It's a fucking big project. It's so huge. That's why less code is better. Less code. Cannot reiterate how important it is to make sure when you are making code to be simple, to use as few data structures, as few like points as possible. If you can use one thing many ways, do it. Always comment your code extensively. Always document what you're doing, what you need to do, anomalies, questions, documentation, comments is the number one most important thing when programming. Number two is keeping it simple, and number three is always zooming out and making sure you're not being like too focused on the micro when in fact the macro will end up determining that the task that you're working on will probably just be like deleted anyway. It's like if you're drawing an anime character and you start working on like the arm and you focus really like greatly on creating a lot of detail on like the tricep elbow area, and then you realize that like the shoulder area is drawn wrong and it's not right, and like the whole arm needs to be erased. You don't want to have wasted a lot of time on the detail of that elbow area, the tricep area, because it's gonna get erased. You know what I mean? So like always keep in mind the what's the word? Like there's a word like not like what's the it's not phantom. The I can't think of the word. It's like on the tip of my tongue. It's whenever like transient, like it's there and then it's gone. Like it comes and it goes. Don't think of all your code as permanent, so don't put too much detail into it. Anyway, we did pretty good. We knocked out tasks that we didn't know that needed to be done, but we improved network file is now like way less bloat. Honestly, all this comment stuff we can get rid of, and I was thinking about doing something where basically we create like a comment. I don't know how we would like structure the wording of it, but have like a file, a folder that contains all of our files here in main, like you know all the ones that we work in network, client, server and stuff, but like it's basically a backup of all those files, and in that folder the files have all these caution comments, and then in the like the actual file, like the non-backup folder, whatever you want to call it, we have the actual files, and we remove all these disabled, like all the disabled code, all this like bloat junk that's disabled. We just remove all of it, but I don't think that's really a good idea. It bothers me to look at it, but because then we would constantly have to update that like backup folder. So it's really no big deal. We're gonna get rid of this bloat code, this commented out shit, as soon as we can test. So the sooner we test, the sooner we can get rid of this junk. So yeah, we need to do the add CS code in client to load the client token. Well, we actually did that, so that's done. So let's get rid of that. Then we have add CS code in client pipe to send the client token. Yeah, that's like basically what we're doing. And then we're also connecting them to the server. Add CS code in client pipe to send the client token. Reconnect. Yeah, so that's kind of like part and parcel of that. We don't really need to add a task here. So we have to do this to send the client token. That's like let's just say 15 minutes. This is add server-side codes to receive. That's another 15 minutes. So 15. And then this is like basically an overview, so it's like 15. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's what, an hour and a half. So an hour and a half to test. So actually we're on track to what I said it was going to be. It said it was going to be 3 hours, and we did a lot of that time. So now, yeah, we're basically on track to test within the next session. So maybe today we'll actually test that code. So anyway, see you later. Maybe not. And yeah, we can finally test the shit. Finally, it's gonna be bugged for sure. I already know. Like there's gonna be some bugs. It's just the way it is. We changed. That's like 4.5 months worth of code changes. So of course there's gonna be bugs. It's probably gonna take me a couple days to just get it, honestly, like to actually crank up. And then we're still gonna have to like debug the runtime, like in-game bugs versus like just like before you actually even get the program running bugs. Those are usually easy to fix, like typos and forgotten parameters and shit like that, bad namespace references and stuff. And then we can actually like test the systems, the save system, the reconnect system. We'll probably test the save system first, then we need to test the reconnect system, because we never actually did test the save system. We implemented that, but we couldn't really test it because it kind of went hand in hand with the reconnect. So there was like we couldn't isolate, unfortunately. So anyway, yeah, we'll do that next session. Hopefully that next session we will actually crank it up and test it.